Why are we having a conversation? All right, before I get started, just let y'all know I'm not Darius Rucker. I'm not. Do not ask, I'm not him, all right? It's my first time in Utah. Yeah. So I went to y'all Target today, and I was playing this game when I was in there called Find the Black Dude. Security was playing the same game, and they won, so it was crazy. I was almost late getting here, man. I was nervous. I thought I was gonna be late driving through Utah, and I had to stop at one of y'all gas stations to get gas, and it took me 30 minutes to get gas, and I wasn't used to it. I didn't know if it was a Utah thing, but got to the gas pump, put my card in. They said debit or credit, and I said debit. They said, what's your code? I put my code in. They was like, what's your zip code? I was like, I don't even live here. What you need to know my zip code for? And they was like, you want a hot dog? I was like, no, I want to get some gas. They was like, you want a car wash? I'm like, no. They said, we got fountain drinks inside. Why are we having a conversation? You shop at Smith's? I don't live here. I hit the wrong button. They canceled my whole transaction. I'm looking for the manager. They didn't even have a car wash. I was like, wait a minute. Didn't you just ask me if I wanted a car wash? I started all the way go over again. They was like, you want a car wash? I said, you know what? Yes, I want a car wash. Now what? And 3 Mexicans walked out. I said, this is... The Mexican dude was cool, though. He was just telling me that the car wash is behind the gas station. But I like how y'all laughed because y'all thought they came out to wash my car. That was a test. Y'all felt that miserably. I'm not judging. It's early, all right? It's early. Recently single again. I don't like being single. I don't like the whole dating thing. The reason why I don't like dating is because I always end up dating a ghetto chick, but I never know she ghetto in the beginning. I don't find out till way later when she get comfortable with the date and she'll just hit me with a ghetto smack out of nowhere. Some of y'all got quiet like y'all don't know what that is. That's when a girl is so involved in her conversation, she has to stop talking to gather her spit together and then continue on with the conversation. And it'll catch you off guard if you never heard her before, but it sounds something like this. So it was me, Nikki, and Shay, right? I said, did you just hit me with a ghetto smack? She was like, no. I thought you said we were going to a restaurant. I said, oh, we are. She said, where we going? I said, McDonald's now. She said, ooh, good, because I was hungry. Let me get a double cheeseburger. Ooh, a large fry. I said, get out my car. It was crazy. I had to start dating black girls again. I was like, I can't keep putting up with this every time I go. Some of y'all look confused on that one. Don't worry about it. You figure it out later. I am the proud parent of twin daughters. I have twin girls, beautiful ladies. Thank you, thank you. Amazing thing about my twins is that they're fraternal twins. Now, one of my daughters looks just like me, and one of my daughters looks just like my ex-wife. Now, the twin that looked like me acts just like me. The one that looked like my ex-wife acts exactly like my ex-wife, and my twins argue with each other all the time. And I said, wow, I done seen all this before. Give her like 2.5 more years, somebody got to file for divorce, like this is not gonna work out. We set y'all up for failure, we're sorry, you know? The one that act like me, like, Daddy, she always gotta be right. She always arguing when she won't never be quiet. I was like, look, sometimes you just gotta grab your car keys and just walk the hell out. Like, you don't have to put up with that. Stop crying, stand up for yourself, be a man. I'm glad my daughters are older, though. I'm glad they're older, because I don't have to watch Nick Jr. anymore in my house. Like, for the first 5 years of their life, I was the goofiest dad of all time. Nobody can debate me on this, okay? Like, I'll be in the house, all of a sudden the phone ring, like, I'd be like, the phone. The phone is ringing. The phone will be right there. The phone the phone is ringing. There's an animal in trouble somewhere. Sir, don't look at me like I just made that song up, all right? I'm not the only one in here that knows that song, all right? You don't believe me, watch this. What's going to work?
Teamwork.
Yeah, that ain't the new Jay-Z, man. That's parenting 101 right there. They used to watch this show called Yo Gabba Gabba. They had this real flamboyant black dude on there with this tight orange suit on. He'd be yelling at the TV like, let's go over what we did today. Can you help me? And all the kids be like, yeah. Can we dance? And the kids go, yeah. And he'll go, well, let's do it. Or break it down. My daughters be like, Daddy, break it down. Go to bed. But their favorite show was this show called The Backyardigans, all right? They had this little show about these animals in the backyard and make-believe, but the animals on the show was black, but they didn't tell you the animals was black, but once you saw the show, you knew they was black. Because the moose name was Tyrone. I was like, all right. It might be a token, I'm not gonna judge. Then they had a hippopotamus named Tasha. I was like, okay, this is a pattern. This one I knew they was all black. They had this pink thing on there. I don't even know what she was. Her name was Uniqua. I was like, okay, so y'all went the whole way, all right? And you always know the show was about to go off at the end because they would ask for a snack. When they asked for a snack, that mean the show about to go off. My kids ask for snacks all the time. I'm like, why y'all keep asking for snacks? It's because they watching this goofy show. And I don't know about y'all. Y'all might have been rich when y'all grew up, but I didn't grow up in no house with no whole bunch of snacks, okay? My sister coming out and be like, yo, Mommy just bought some cookies. I'd be like, first of all, it ain't even a holiday. Don't mess with me like that, you know? Kids get snacks all the time now. It's like a requirement, you know what I mean? My kid's outside playing one day, this little girl at the end of my driveway. I don't even know this little girl. I get to the end of the driveway. She's like, how you doing? I was like, fine, nice to meet you. She's like, y'all got any snacks in your house? I was like, bye, Felicia. Get your begging self out my driveway. She's like, I just want to know if y'all got any snacks. Say, we ain't got jack, Snacky Robinson. Get your behind out my driveway. When my kids were 6 years old, man, I had the opportunity of a lifetime. Got a chance to take them to Disney World. They didn't know they was going. The best day of their life. Got to Disney World, man. The best day that we were down there, they got a chance to put their princess dresses on and meet all the Disney princesses in one day. Lost their minds. They saw Snow White. They was like, ah! They saw Cinderella. They was like, oh my God, she's real. They saw Ariel. They was like, she's walking. And then Jasmine came out, and I was like, wow. I was like, she looked bad as heck in real life. I was like, oh my God, I can get a picture with you. She was like, sure. I was like, oh my God. They was like, Daddy, we want a picture with Jasmine. I was like, shut up. I said, you guys, excuse me, my nieces be tripping. They wild out. As a father, though, you always want to make sure you're protecting your daughters. That's our main goal as a father, protect your children. There was a situation that happened when they were smaller, and I wasn't able to protect them the way I was supposed to, and it bothered me. You know, we driving in the car one day, they in the back singing, having a good time. All of a sudden, they start screaming at the top of their lungs, ah! I turned around and said, what's the problem? They was like, Daddy, it's a bug in the car. And I turned around, it's this little tiny bug flying in the back seat of the car. And I said, don't worry about it, Mama. Daddy can fix it. I put the window down in the backyard, a little bug flew out. Then this big bug flew in. They lost their minds. They was like, ah! They was screaming, they was kicking the back of my seat. I said, hey, stop screaming and shut up. Sit down and be quiet. Sit down and be quiet. Turn around, I put the windows up in the back. I said, now look, now either y'all gonna kill this bug or the bug gonna kill y'all. Y'all, they straight murdered that bug, you hear me? Like, how y'all get out the seatbelt that fast and put the knife down? That's amazing. One of my daughters is extremely smart. I'm not saying my other daughter's dumb. I'm saying one is extremely smart, okay? Now figure this out. Now I'll give you an example. Like my daughter, one of my daughters is right reading level, right math level. Everything is right where it's supposed to be. But my other daughter is on some astronaut stuff, and I just figured it out when they were about 3 years old. We're in a restaurant. Both of my daughters said at the same time, "Daddy, we have to go to the bathroom." And I was like, this is horrible, because don't no dad want to have to take his daughters into no men's bathroom. So I'm like, look, don't nobody look at nothing. Don't nobody touch nothing. Matter of fact, don't even touch each other, because I don't know how this works, okay? So we get in the bathroom, and they use the bathroom. We walk out to the sink. They're washing their hands. And all of a sudden, my daughter, who's 3 years old, was trying to read the sign on the wall. And I was like, wow, she's trying to read the sign at the sink? She only 3 years old? I'm impressed. A couple minutes later, my daughter was like, "Daddy, why do employees have to wash their hands before returning to work?" I was like, what? I said, "You just read that?" She said, "Yes, sir." And I started tripping, because I'm like, maybe I can read at 3. I just only remember having to read in kindergarten. You understand what I'm saying? But nobody remembers being 3, you know what I mean? But I got another 3-year-old right beside her, another crash dummy right there. I'm like, "Hey, can you read that sign?" She said, "Yes, sir." I said, "What does it say?" She said, "Brown." I said, "Not the color. What's the word say?" She said, "White." I said, "You can't read that?" She's like, "I'm 3. I said, "That's what I thought. Don't touch her. She a mutant." That's exactly what I thought. Ever since that moment, man, my daughter has found a way to make me feel dumb every single year without even trying, right? Last year, my daughters wanted wristwatches for Christmas, right? So I was like, I got an idea. I'll pick them up one weekend. We'll go to the mall, go through the store, look at some watches. Then I know what to get, what not to get for Christmas, right? We get to the 3rd store. My daughter goes, "Oh." I said, "What's the problem?" She's like, "Where are the analog watches?" I said, "Who makes that?" She said, "Analog." I said, "What is that, Timex, Rolex, Hublot? Who makes that?" She said, "Analog, Daddy." I was like, "What are you talking about?" She said, "These are digital." I was like, "And?" She's like, "The other watch, long hand, short hand." I said, "Who told you that?" She's like, "That's what we learned in school." I said, "That's wrong." She said, "What's it called?" I said, "It's called a regular watch." She's like, "It's not." I said, "It is." I called my ex-wife on the phone. I said, "Hey, the watch with just the numbers on it, what's that called?" She said, "Digital." I said, "The one with the long hand and short hand?" I said, "What's that called?" She's like, "A regular watch." I said, "That's what I thought." I just wanted to make sure 2 dumb parents can make a smart kid is what I was trying to figure out. Now, with twins, everything is a competition. You know, everything's competitive. And my other daughter's tired of hearing how smart her sister is. She wanted to get some praise. So one day, my daughter comes in and goes, "Daddy, guess what the teacher said?" I said, "What did the teacher say?" She said, "The teacher said I have the neatest handwriting in the whole grade." I said, "The whole grade?" She said, "The whole grade." I said, "Write something for me." She wrote something. I made a big deal about it. I said, "Wow, that's beautiful. I never seen somebody your age write that neat before. That's absolutely amazing." Her sister goes, "Puh." I said, "What's the problem?" She's like, her tittles aren't even in the right position. I said, "Her what?" She said, "Her tittles." I was like, "What's that?" She said, "That's the dot over top of the lowercase I." I said, "Oh, you just making stuff up now." She's like, "Look it up." I go on my phone, I'm looking it up. But as I'm looking it up, I'm telling her, "Hey, here's a situation. You could have been happy for your sister and just gave her some praise instead of trying to be a jerk and trying to make her feel bad about herself." I was like, and I'm looking this information up and I'm reading the definition and you owe her an apology because that's not what it means. She said, "You spelled it incorrectly." I said, "You better get out my face before I put a tittle over your eyes." You know? Been doing comedy for a while, man. I do a lot of traveling. So there's a lot of stories on the road, which is always fun. I'll share a couple of them with you. I was doing a show one time in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I was doing this show. I was out one afternoon having lunch. And I was leaving this restaurant at the same time this older couple was leaving. And this older couple had been together at least 40 years. You could just tell by their mannerisms, how they treated one another, but they were still holding hands. And I'm like, "That is beautiful." And they walking out the restaurant, but it was pouring down raining. And the wife turned to her husband and said, "Baby, it's really coming down out there. Why don't you go get the car and pull it around so I can get in?" And I was like, "That's so sweet." And he turned around, looked at his wife, and was like, "Wasn't you just in the ocean an hour ago?" Go outside, get in the car. And she walked out in the rain, and I said, "What was that?" I was mad because I was like, I've seen Notebook way too many times. That's not supposed to happen after 40 years, you know? Hurt my heart, you know? I was doing a show one time in Virginia. It was a real small crowd, maybe 10 or 15 people. And I met this couple up front. I said, hey, y'all cute. Where'd y'all meet? They said, work. I said, where do you work? They said, a high school. So I asked the lady, what exactly do you do at the high school? She said, I'm an interpreter. I translate. I said, what do you translate? Spanish? She said, no, sign language. I said, oh, how many deaf kids they got at the school? She said, 1. I said, so if that kid don't come to school, you get to go home? She was like, yeah. I said, wow. That's a great job, you know? I sign to that kid every other Thursday, like, look, now you know we ain't got no school tomorrow, right? Who's gonna verify that? You understand what I'm saying? Like, they didn't come to school again? Be like, dude, 3-day weekend, don't get mad at me. I don't know where that kid is, you know? But I've always wanted to tell jokes and have somebody do sign language on stage, but we never had anybody deaf in the audience. But that night, I had an interpreter, so I pulled her up on stage just to test it out. So I start telling my jokes. She was signing every single word to precision. Crowd is laughing, but this how dumb the crowd was. They wasn't laughing when they heard my joke. They would wait till she got done, and then they would laugh. And I'm like, what the heck are y'all doing? Y'all not deaf and y'all don't know sign language. What you waiting on her for, you know? And I'm telling these jokes and she all animated behind me and they laughing at her and I'm like, that's not how it's supposed to work at all. Because if it was a deaf person in the audience, I would tell the joke, y'all would laugh and then I would hear after. Some of y'all tightened up on that one, listen. They are never going to hear that joke, all right? So, relax, stop judging, and enjoy yourself, okay? All right. I find out a lot of good stuff on the road, too, man. Educational stuff. I was doing a show one time in Alabama, and I met this lady at the end of the show, and she said, I just moved down here from the Northeast. I said, why'd you move down to Alabama? She said, I'm helping my brother with some animals. And I was like, what, does he have a farm? She said, nah, he just got some farm animals. I said, what does he have? She was like, oh, he got some chickens, he got some goats, got a couple sheep, got some horses. I was like, that's a farm. She's like, he got a donkey. I was like, why does he have a donkey? She's like, oh, that's a guard animal. It protects the other animals. I was like, no, it doesn't. She's like, yeah, dude, look it up. I looked it up. I never knew this in my entire life, that donkeys are very territorial animals, and if you raise donkeys around other animals, they become protective of them. So if that's a coyote or a fox or anything around of danger, the coyote will chase, it'll bite, it'll kick, it'll bray real loud. Braying is hee-hawing. I thought it was called hee-hawing, but it ain't. I didn't know nothing about donkeys, okay? Like, the only thing I knew about donkeys, I swear to God, man, only thing I knew about donkeys was that they talk like Eddie Murphy. They hang with Shrek, and they marry dragons. Like, that's the only thing I knew about donkeys. And I'm reading all the pros to having a donkey, and I'm saying to myself, I should buy a donkey. Like, they might be the next pit bull. You don't know, right? So they had all the pros listed for having a donkey. And next to the pros, they had the cons. The cons for having a donkey are, they might not do none of the things I just said they were supposed to do. So you can go to the donkey dealership and buy you a brand new donkey, right? Raise this donkey for 2 years, right? You wake up one morning, everything that hit the fan, right? The chickens is slaughtered, the goat is gone, the horse is missing, the donkey eating. You like, what happened? And the donkey like, man, it went down last night. It went down? You didn't do your donkey stuff or nothing? Nah. You know what you being right now? You lucky I can't say it. Yeah, they call me that too. It's amazing, man. Donkeys, right? It's good stuff, man. As a parent, man, and everybody in here is parents. Clap your hands, parents. That's good. I give you guys respect because you all try. You try your best to do the best job you can, and none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. You just want to make sure you don't make the huge mistake that's going to screw your kids up for the rest of their life. I did something a few weeks ago, y'all. It's questionable, okay? But I'm telling y'all, not for y'all to judge me, just so I can get it off my chest, okay? We all friends now, all right? Me and my daughters were walking into a grocery store, and it was an Asian family walking out as we were walking in, and the Asian family all had germ masks on, and my daughters had never seen that before. And my daughter was like, Daddy, why are they wearing those masks? And I could have been a good parent at that point. All I had to do was explain to them that, hey, in the Asian culture, it's so populated, they wear those masks as a courtesy so they don't pass their germs on back and forth to one another when they have a cold or they sick. But I didn't say that. I said they on their way to ninja practice. I went for the funny, right? I'm a comedian, right? But then my conscience said, hey, you're a jerk. You just pass prejudices on to your kids, and they're going to think that for the rest of their life because you're trying to be funny. Then my conscience went a step further and said, now, what if the little Asian girl asked her dad at the very same time, Daddy, why are they all wearing hoodies going into the store? And the dad said, easy, they about to rob it. Now, the message is, don't pass prejudices on to your kids because it's just not fair to them, okay? Right, thank you. But don't act like the next time y'all don't see a germ mask, y'all not gonna be like, ninja practice, that's That was good, man. Tattoos, clap your hands, tattoos in the house? Tattoos, all right, maybe one person, that's it. That's how y'all get down to Utah. It's like we got the one person that got a tattoo over here. That's what it is. Don't worry. I don't have one either, so I'm kind of with y'all. But I always wanted to get one, but I always was afraid I was going to get one that's going to be messed up, and then I got to live with it for the rest of my life. Got a friend of mine, she was all excited one day. I said, what you all happy about? She said, I'm about to go to this tattoo party. And I said, what is a tattoo party? She said, I got a friend of mine that want to be a tattoo artist, throw these parties on the weekends and give everybody free tattoos so we can practice. And I said, you mean like with a Sharpie? She said, no, with a real tattoo gun. I said, what they look like? She said, they getting better. I said, are you crazy? She's like, no, it's free. I said, that's not what I asked you. I asked you if you was crazy. She's like, it's free. I was like, whatever. I said, what you gonna get? She said, I'm gonna let him decide. I said, you crazy. That's easy, right? A couple of days later, she come to the house smiling. I said, what'd you get? She said, my zodiac sign. I said, let me see. She took her shirt sleeve down. On her arm, her tattoo said Leo. Had a Leo symbol, had a lion underneath it, but the lion had a massive, massive underbite. Her lion had an uncorrectable underbite, okay? Like every time she moved her arm, like the lion was singing, and you woo, woo, woo. I said, even if the top part of your arm got fat right here, his jaw is still gonna be messed up. She said, I think it looked cute. I said, I think you need to cut your arm off. I'm just being honest. Couple days later, my boy came over the house, had the same arm bandaged up. And I said, what happened to your arm? He said, I went to this free tattoo party. I said, what'd you get? He said, my zodiac sign. I said, you lying. I said, what'd you get? He said, my zodiac sign. I said, man, please let me see this tattoo. I said, you're not a Leo, are you? He was like, nah. I said, let me see. Took his shirt off, took the bandage off. On his tattoo, it said Aquarius. Had the Aquarius symbol. Had the same lion with a swim cap on. I said, it's not Aquarius, that's what that is. No, we going through like a lot of political things. And I feel like sometimes I need to be a politician because I have a lot of great ideas. And I think my ideas will bring everybody together. Because when I come up with my ideas, I include everybody, every demographic. I just do things that make sense to everybody. I got 2 good ideas. If I come up with 4 more, I might be your next president. I'm just letting y'all know. I might start right here in Utah, you understand? My first idea is I think they need to come out with an update on social media that allows everyone to update their friend's post. Like for grammatical errors. Like if you can't properly use there, or there in a sentence, you should get off social media, you know what I mean? Like, at least off my timeline, right? I had a friend of mine that died a few weeks ago and somebody put on my post, hey, sorry for your lost. And I said, yeah, man, he not missing, he gone. And some of y'all didn't laugh at that. If you don't fully understand that joke, let's just say you lost. All right, My second idea is I think they need to come out with a law that requires everyone to put their cell phone number on their license plate. Stop a traffic jam immediately. You call someone on the phone. Hello? Hey, man, you know anybody that owns a gray Range Rover or a blue Corvette? No, exactly. You don't know them people in the accident. Keep it moving. Got all this backed up because you being nosy. Get out the way. On the highway, it'd be 10 times better. Be on the highway. Hello? Hey, man, what's going on? Nothing. Who this? Don't worry about who it is. What I need you to get your dumb behind out this left lane and get over. Hey, man, I'm going up. They'll tell me how fast you was going. You ain't see me behind you like a mile back, man. Get over. Hey, man, you ain't got to get belligerent. Hey, man, don't get mad at the messenger, man. The dude behind me called me to call you to tell you. Thank you, Utah, man. You guys been great. Appreciate you.